somebody who can, string a few sentences together needs to call Zelensky and say, here's what we're going to do. You're not going to join NATO. Well, we'll get the NATO Secretary General, John Stoltenberg, to say that. You need to say it, and the U.S. will say it. So you're not going to join NATO. You're not going to join the EU. You can be independent in the sense of being autonomous, but you have to be neutral. And there are plenty of models for this. Finland during the Cold War, Austria during the Cold War, potentially Ukraine today. There's when you've got two great powers, whether it's the U.S. and Russia, or the U.S. plus Europe and Russia confronting each other, the idea of buffer states, I mean, that's as old as maybe if not history, at least the history of buffer states is several centuries old at this point. It's a part of what every international strategist looks at. So Ukraine should be a buffer state. It should be neutral. That way Putin has no reason to invade, and we have no reason to try to push the borders of NATO to a point slightly east of Moscow, which Moscow hasn't been attacked from the east since Genghis Khan. These are the most extreme, serious sanctions, financial sanctions that have ever been imposed. Bear in mind that FDR froze Japanese bank accounts and stopped exports of oil to Japan in August 1941, 4 months before Pearl Harbor. So, and the Pearl Harbor attack had been in the planning earlier than that, but it was kind of going down that road. So wouldn't be the first instance of financial sanctions having kinetic consequences. So here we are slamming Russia with all these sanctions. Probably the Russian economy will contract 20 to 25% over the next 6 months. I think that's a realistic forecast. It will hurt. But what no one in the White House seems to have thought about is the blowback. And that's the first thing you're supposed to think about the second move before you make the first move. So the United States cut off semiconductor exports to Russia. Not just that, not just as a primary boycott, but as what's called a secondary boycott, which we said to everybody in the world, most pointedly the Chinese, if you make your own semiconductors with our equipment and our technology under license from us, you can't sell that to Russia either. So this isn't just about, Intel can't sell semiconductors to Russia. That's true. Chinese semiconductor manufacturers can't sell semiconductors to Russia if they're made with our equipment, which they are. But basically, all this stuff kind of comes out of the U.S. in the first instance. But what people don't realize is that look around your kitchen or any part of your house, or get in a car. A car is basically a computer on wheels. It has 1,400 semiconductors. It's all semiconductors. 1,400 semiconductors in a typical car. But it's not just that. This is the Internet of Things, right? So your refrigerator, your dishwasher, your washing machine, your coffee maker, you name it, they all have semiconductors. This processed neon gas that powers the lasers that makes the semiconductors, 70% of it comes from a single plant in Odessa, in Ukraine. Now, and Odessa's under siege, so, give it a few days, but that's going to be in Russian hands in a matter of days. The Russian Marines are getting ready for an amphibious assault. They're doing a lot of preparation for that, softening up the target. So Putin's just going to say, okay, we can't have semiconductors. You can't have the neon gas. That's going to shut down the entire global semiconductor industry, which in turn, since that's an input, is going to shut down basically all the manufacturing in the world. Plus, they've obviously allowed the energy payments to continue. But you can buy Russian oil, and they have to, because Europe has put itself in a position where they're going to freeze in the dark if they don't have, I said oil, yes, but also primarily natural gas. But if they don't have those Russian energy resources, they're going to shut down their industry, and they're going to have blackouts, and people are going to, as they say, freeze in the dark. So they've got to get it. They got to pay dollars for it. The central bank's going to get the dollars. Now, what's extraordinary about these sanctions is, for the first time, at least since the Cold War, but maybe ever, they've frozen the assets of a central bank, which are over $600 billion. They have relatively few treasury securities in portfolio, but they could be involved in using dollars in foreign exchange swaps. These sanctions will not work to stop the war or slow the war or change the outcome of the war. Now, they absolutely punish the Russian economy. Yep. They punish Russian individuals, consumers, Russian citizens. They're going to have fewer options, more expensive goods. Their economy is going to slow down. Unemployment will go up. The ruble is devalued. All those things are true. But they're also true in the United States. We're going to punish Americans far worse than the Russians. We're already seeing, I took a long trip yesterday. I filled up my car with gas at the end of the trip. It was $76. It used to be $45 to fill up my car. Now it's $76. Yeah. Not quite doubling. Well, multiply that by 200 million cars, and every consumer in the United States and elsewhere in the world, you're seeing the impact of this already. It's not like, oh, gee, it's coming. It's already here. It's going to get a lot worse. This is what these people don't think about. Ukraine supplies 20% of the grain in the world. It's 35% of Boeing's aluminum comes from Russia. And for Airbus, it's 50%. How do you make the batteries? What's in the batteries? Lithium, cobalt, and nickel. Guess who produces most of that in the world? Russia. People are familiar with the supply chain at the retail end. Like you go to the store and the shelves are bare. Oh, where's the hot sauce and the peanut butter, But they're not as familiar with the supply chain on the input end, at the other end, where the stuff goes in, the source materials. And a lot of that, and in many cases, 80, 90, up to 100% of the global supply comes from Russia. And so what we're going to do is we're going to cut off the oxygen supply to the global supply chain. Now, how do you feel? So this is the point, which is, and we can come back to the dollar as the medium of exchange, but I say that the supply chain is not a big part of the economy. It is the economy, because everything from equipment we're using and stuff on your wall or my wall, it comes from a supply chain, and we're going to shut that down with what we're doing to Russia. So, not nice guys, and I'm not defending the invasion. I'm just saying if you want to use financial weapons, be prepared for the blowback. Do you really think you can inflict that much economic damage on Russia, which they have, without that coming back in a very densely connected web of which is what global finance and the global banking system is, without creating liquidity crisis all over the world? So the liquidity crisis, global liquidity crises are different than stock market crashes in the sense the stock market will just crash all at once, in a day or a couple of days or whatever, and then it tends to come back. The stock market crash is like an earthquake. Global liquidity crisis is more like termites. They're just eating away at foundations that you can't see, and then one day the house caves in. We may be headed for that.